Alrighty, guys, welcome back. Got another week of league adventures, and off sick last week. We had the bye round, so we took advantage of that and got man flu, and decided to sort of have a few bedridden days, which was all nice and all good. And but watched all the footy on the weekend. Good excuse to be lazy, and watched a few games. Watched some of the top four, top five. Put some big performances in, and a couple maybe sliding as well. Got the awesome twosome in tonight. Me and Sid, so the OGs as we call each other. So no guests tonight. First off, just going to do a hats off to a future thing, which is obviously this weekend Women in League round, and just a quick touch on a shout out to all the women in league. You got your commentary, you got your obviously your players, the NRLW. You've got the mums, which obviously take the kids to junior footy, and if it wasn't for them, there'd be no such thing as the game that we love at the moment, and half the players in there playing it. So big credit to the mums in league as well, and obviously all the girlfriends and wives that keep the players happy. And this year, more than probably any time with the bubble and stuff, they probably needed the women in the league. So shout out to all the ladies, all the commentators, and all that sort of thing as well. And Sid, I'll bring you in here. I know it was something you wanted to mention, and anything I missed out.
No, you pretty much covered it, man. It's I'm just excited for the NRLW to start. Actually, saw the announcement along with the state of origin. It's all happening, but it is women in league round. They timed it to perfection to coincide with the round and the announcement that the women's comp will be back in effect. I quite enjoy it. You know, it's a good league. There's not much wrestling. These girls are so tough.
Yeah,
they play well. They play very very old school footy, and it's very watchable. Very watchable league. It's only small. There's only 4 teams at the moment.
yeah.
But it's good as far as the league goes, and as far as the women in league in general. No, I echo those sentiments. We appreciate what the women do. I mean, you look at tens of thousands of canteens across Australia every weekend. It's the women that hold it together.
Yeah.
Make sure it runs smoothly and properly. And I've seen it from the late '80s when I started to now. It's still the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Credit. That's off indeed.
100%. Just to touch on the NRLW, we'll probably bring it up a bit more closer to it, but I feel like the game needs to grab it at the moment. I know this year is a bit harder with COVID, but there's a real chance there to bring. There's a lot of young girls starting to play the game. We've noticed with the younger grades, with the under 10s, 11s, and 9s and 8s. There's a real chance here to grow this NRLW, and I think it should be brought out to at least 8 teams in the next year or so, and extend it, make it a longer comp than just finals, because to be fair, a lot of the league supporters are looking at just the finals games. I think that product, it's actually a really good product. They play some really good footy. So it'd be good to see the games take that to the next level now with the NRLW and actually go for it to be a much higher. We know now with State of Origin, we see the top echelon of players, and we're starting to know a lot of these girls' names first and last, like we do the men's side of things. So good for them to take that next level and see where it goes. So I'm looking forward to obviously another year of that, and hopefully someone can knock off that Broncos team, which is looking pretty strong as ever. So, but we're going to start off with something different tonight, and we're going to go with bottoms up review, we're going to call it. So basically what we're going to do is each week have a couple of teams. This week we're going to have 4, and it's not the 4 you want to be part of, it's the bottom 4. So don't worry about the top 4 at this stage, but each week we'll probably have 3 or 4 teams that we just sort of give a bit of a review on, and see what they've done wrong this year, and have a bit of a chat about what they can do to improve next year. So first up, we've got Sid, and he's going to talk about obviously the team coming last. I don't think they're going to have another win this year, so I think the spoon is theirs now, unfortunately. But the Dogs, and I know you've got some tight binds with the Dogs, and a few of their supporters. How do you feel about the Dogs, Sid?
Yeah, man, it's the end of a long road of underachieving. as a club, as far as players and individuals, you feel for them because they could only play with what they had. They really banked on a couple of things. They banked on winning a comp by building a super team. Uh, the way they built that team was they basically back-ended their contracts. It's much publicised now. So back-ended meaning if it's a 5-year deal, for each every year, the money goes up. They hope they win a comp or two in that time. They made the grand final 2012, 2014. This is how long this has been going on, and a number of back-ended contracts. And the other thing that we're relying on is the cap going up. For some reason, they were thinking the cap's going to go around to 12 million, but it didn't. It went to 9.25. I think it's 9.75 now, and it was they basically they put all the eggs in that basket, and they didn't win the comps. They played those two grand finals, didn't win the premiership, and were left with all these players on overs.
Mm.
To name a few, like the Morris boys, obviously they're elite class. They're a different breed, even well into their 30s, they're still quality. But, when you're paying guys like Reynolds and Mbai and Aaron Woods a little bit after that, and my personal favourite, which we've already discussed, and, Greg Eastwood was on 800 grand or playing reserve grade, because, because his deal was back-ended and no one would pick him up, to take the contract off him. Now, this is the end of those contracts, so they're done. James Graham was another one as well, by the way, so they were paying for him, even though he's playing for another club. But yeah, so they're at the end of that, so they have all this money to play with, and they can finally build a team. And decent effort by the guys, the personal trainers that that were masquerading as rugby league players, as I kept saying. That's what they've done wrong. What they're going to do right, hopefully, is and they got Trent Barrett in. It's yet to be seen if it's going to be a success, but he'll certainly have a bit of money to play with in the next season or two. He can build a squad that he likes and build a culture there to his liking, to his style of football. So, I mean, it's a proud club. It's a club with a lot of heart, in my opinion. But they're finally at the light at the end of the tunnel.
It's an interesting case with the Dogs because you watch them each week and they're just a class down of what an NRL team should be, in my opinion. And it's just, we've said it before in these videos, and it's no offense to some of their players, but I know one of them got dropped this week with Meany, and it's just this modern day of age, you can't have a small winger. It's very hard to have that. He doesn't make the meters coming out. Then you've got people like Lewis, which for mine, I think he's feeding off his uncle's name a lot. No offense to the bloke, but it doesn't look like he offers anything to that team. And then they've had Foran, who's been up and down. Now, the second part to this question, what we're going to do for most teams is where to next. And I just wanted to quickly touch on a point that you just made, was that when you back end contracts, it is always dangerous because you don't know what's going to happen in that 4 to 5 years later, which at the moment, the Dogs are finally, as people are saying, released from this jail type feel for the club, but they've got no one now to go out and sign because there's no one available that's really going to make that club any better than what it is at the moment. So really they're stuck with people like Lewis and stuff for another year. They've just signed Green, but he's not going to be there for the first couple of weeks, if not half the season next year with his knee. So there's a danger there for him next year that this year's going to be quite the same for next year, maybe a bit better with fresher mentality. But where to for the Dogs, Sid?
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make. I remember they made a big play for Latrell Mitchell when he went to Souths, to play under Wayne Bennett. The only thing I could think of, the only player aside from Green was Nick Kotrick. So they picked up Nick Kotrick, and that's great, but that's a winner. They've got a long way to go. Got a long way to go to build a squad. Obviously, we're not privy to the numbers, but I'm sure they have some money to play with. But like you say, when you're signing players, you need to look 12 to 18 months down the track if you want a big name. If you look at Tedesco, it's a perfect example. The Roosters signed him 18 months before his contract ran out at the Tigers. And everybody was like, "What's this? This is stupid. You're gonna watch him play another year in another jersey, still waiting for him to come. Look at him now, best player in the world, best fullback in the world by far and away.
Yeah.
It's just something that has to be done. So you raise a valid point. Maybe next year's going to be a struggle as well.
Yeah, unfortunately so. But that's enough from the Dogs. Sorry, Dogs fans. I know you've gone through the ringer and we've just sort of whacked you back down there. But fingers crossed it's a bit better next year. But unfortunately, with the way that it's looking at the moment, I don't think it's going to be too much better. Obviously, 15th is a team that both we've both talked about a lot with this, and the Broncos. And I know Sid's beaten it like a dead horse, and he's already given me the heads up. He doesn't really want to say too much in this one about him because, well, we've both said it. But obviously, a review, you've got to say a few things and probably go over it again. But obviously, it's been the worst year, hands down, for the club since the club started. It's fair to say it's been a pathetic year, a joke of a year for a club that prides itself so much on the heritage of the joint and how it's such a successful club to be in the position that they're currently in. And they're exactly like the Dogs. So Dogs fans, you're not alone. Their team at the moment, they're going backwards next year for mine at the moment. They haven't got any signings yet. They have lost their best player in Fafita. They don't even have a coach or a CEO at the moment. So at the moment, you should be signing players and getting your team ready for next year. They don't have any of that at the moment, and they're just starting the process now, they're saying. So I'm sorry, but you've got people like Icon, who's a standout for CEO. You should just basically hand him his papers and go, you start the job tonight, off you go. And you've got either Green or Walters, either will do the job. Just make a decision after whichever and go on. At the moment, they're falling behind next year, but obviously this year they've got they have had some injuries. We will give them that. They have had a couple of injuries, but the thing was at the start of the year and last year, Seabold was big on saying they have a big depth team and paraded about having youngsters. And then midway through this year, they start pulling out the excuses of not having a team that was experienced enough. Well, we've already spoken about this in the past, but you got rid of your experience last year. So you can't come back and throw an excuse like that out to your fans and the public and the media that you were the ones that decided to do that. And you even got rid of your experienced coach the year before that. So you've got all these reasonings that kept coming up. I just thought this year was a build-up of a few lazy decisions over the last 2 years for the club. And it's all come to a crashing halt now. And it's pretty disappointing because I know a lot of Broncos fans out there, and it's one of those things where they're obviously going pretty poorly, and a lot of their fans are they're not used to going through this like a lot of us fans, like your Dragons fans, like your Para fans, like your Dogs fans. Like we're used to it because we've had our clubs in those situations quite a lot. Or not quite a lot, but we've been through it, where the Broncos haven't. And you got to train your fans through this sort of period. And they haven't done that well. Sid, I know you don't really want to talk, but I'll get a quick one off you with the Broncos. And how do you think they're obviously their horror season went?
Yeah, oh man, look. If you want to talk about the intricacies of their performances on the field, there was a high energy, high effort, in your face line speed style, but there was a gross technical issue. The gaps between the defenders, a lot of the tries that they conceded, the line breaks they conceded were just basically straight runners. There were no lead runners, bum plays, run arounds, decoys, nothing fancy. They were just straight runners, short balls. And that spelled alarm bells for me right at the start of the year. They're pretty much running straight.
Yeah,
If they're not running straight at a bloke, they're going to go through. So defense was the first issue. And then in attack, they've all this go forward, and then Payne Haas had a little bit of a second year syndrome, but still one of the best props going around. Certainly the best young prop going around. For Fafita, Penguin Jr. We had Matt Lodge, who probably was, not at his best due to injury, but you had the rise of young guys like Carrigan as well. They had more than enough go forward, and then they would spread it, and it was just like they were running around in circles. Like one sweeping backline movement, and that criticism is not limited to the Broncos. My Dragons were the same. We had two moves for most of the year: put up a bomb or give it to Dufty.
Mm.
That was it. It's not good enough. For a guy that they got rid of, 6-time premiership winning, coach Wayne Bennett, for this guy who can't even coach a simple backline move.
Yeah.
One thing I pointed out was, they did a play, and I remember watching the game very early in the season. They did a play, and it was a quick play, and they said, all right, we'll spread it. They spread it, and they got to Milford, and he literally did a semicircle one way, then did a semicircle the other, and then tried to Jenkins step and then offload, and he dropped the ball and went, where's his support? They had the defense going backwards. It was just, and I thought, what is this? And if you watch him play now, nothing's changed. Nothing's improved. It was just a disaster on the field. They got all the talent in the world. There's no excuse for this sort of thing. And it's what I think is the biggest franchise in Australia, at its lowest point at the moment.
That's the biggest thing, and I guess obviously the way forward for the club, I've sort of touched on it, but your first two decisions has to be the CEO, which for mine is Icon hands down. The guy lives and breathes the club. He's played for him. He loves him. He's very smart. People are listening to him on NRL 360 and he knows the game inside out. So he's a very smart operator. So he's got the footy knowledge, but he's also got the smarts behind it as well, which you've got to have for that role, I think. And the biggest thing for them is that he'll install some passion back in the club, which I think this year is the first time you've seen the Broncos. And I think half of last year as well, when they were getting beat quite a bit towards the back end. But there's been no passion. The players just every time they get scored on, you see them in the huddle and that there's no one talking. They're just sort of looking around, just sort of looking straight ahead, just going, well, here's another week where it happens again. So make your decision on your CEO, make your decision on your coach, and maybe try and sign one or two, try and get someone out of their contract early, because for mine, they need a playmaker and they need probably another hard head in the forwards just to guide these youngsters through the next year or so, and go with that. But that was that for the Broncos. And sorry, Broncos fans, have been pretty harsh on you this year, but I think you guys have been just as harsh on your own team. So obviously the next cab off the rank is the 14th placed Cowboys. It looks like that's going to be their spot as well. So lock them into that position. And Sid was pretty excited about this one, so I'll go straight to him.
Yeah, I was excited about this one because we haven't talked about it much. They kind of flew under the radar. It's been such a disaster for the aforementioned Bulldogs and the Broncos and the Dragons. And these Cowboys, I mean, they have what I think is probably arguably one of the best middle forwards of the modern era, not just now, the modern era in Tamalolo. They signed him to a 10-year deal, so they would basically saying, we're going to build a team around this guy. They've got Michael Morgan there, who on his day is pretty good, but he's been stuttering like an old car, for some time for whatever reason. I don't know. And they let their players age, the outside backs, and they let some other players come in that were just average. They weren't great. I don't know. Maybe they lacked a little bit of aggressiveness in the player market, because they certainly saw it coming. They bought Valentine Holmes. They had Barber. That was a bit of an issue. Barber didn't touch a footy and got banned for life or whatever. Got kicked out of the league for off-field stuff. It's just, and then when you look, across the back line, even though Felt is still a good finisher, he's not getting any younger. Justin O'Neill, he gets schooled quite regularly purely because he's old. He's just an old bloke now out there. Guys like Gavin Cooper as well. They haven't really looked at replacing. And you can't. In this competition, short version. This competition, it gets better 2 or 3% a year.
Mm.
And if your players are staying here, they're not getting any better. In fact, a couple of them are getting worse. It's not even personal. It's just they're getting whatever. And there's another thing, is the game plan. It didn't involve either. So you've got the personnel, players that are too old, You got players that probably just like walked into first grade. They weren't prodigies. They weren't guns. They just got there by circumstance. And you've got a game plan that's 2015.
Yeah.
When they made that run, to the grand final. So I think Paul Green, like, he got that leeway, which I thought he deserved because he's a premiership winner. But now is the time where they're in a rebuilding stage. But unlike teams like the Dogs for financial reasons, or the Dragons because they stupidly kept McGregor and was too stubborn to admit that it was the wrong decision, their rebuilding won't be 4 or 5 years. It will be 1 year, maybe 2 years. So it's not all bad. If they can get their roster sorted for Toddy Payton, we've seen what he can do very, very quickly. I mean, he had no roster. In fact, he was losing players with the Warriors.
Yeah.
Still managed to get them to perform. So that's the promising side of it.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think the Cowboys are lucky that for the Broncos this year, to be fair, because a lot of people, remember at the start of the year, had the Cowboys as a top 8 team. They thought that the team and the squad they had was top 8 quality, which it was. I think now this year you've sort of seen a lot of their players have, as you said, have aged, and it's really hit them this year. There's a fine line. You hear a lot of players who retire talk about this, and obviously neither of us have sort of been at that level, but you sort of know when your body starts to get to that stage where a lot of the good players, like Joey was saying, he's glad he finished that year earlier than go that year more. JT says it as well, where that's your decline year. And I think a couple of their Cowboys players have gone that decline year where they should have let them sort of tap them on the shoulder and say, oh, let's go this last year. And they're sort of paid a bit for that. And they've got a couple of good young kids coming through, like that Tabuai Fido and the Reece Robson that we've seen at hooker. He's a really, really good player. And Drinkwater will get better for the run as well. He's got some good years ahead of him. So I guess in terms of the future for the Cowboys, there is a good future there coming through. Valentine Holmes will be better for a season back in the NRL. It's always the second year where it is better. So it's not all doom and gloom. You still got Tamalolo. He's still pretty young. He's still beating those meters out. But I think for the future, and Sid, I guess you'd probably agree with this, but the future does look good for the Cowboys.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect.
It's not as high as the other teams around them.
Yeah, that's the thing. And as you point out, Todd Payton's probably the best up-and-coming coach at the moment. So apart from probably Holbrook at the Titans, which I've got massive raps on at the moment, but Payton's a little bit younger, so to speak. So he's got some things coming through for him. But last but not least for this one, for this week, would be the mighty St. George Illawarra Dragons. And they're the 12th place team, no, 13th place team, sorry. And they're not obviously moving from that position, I don't feel, with the way they're playing. And I think it was summed up, obviously it's a season preview, season review, but it was summed up on the weekend where I heard one of the commentators say it's pretty sad when your highlight of the weekend is your rookie on debut is your highlight of the weekend, which obviously for that club it's been, and it's been more of there's not really been an upside for the year. It's been basically just a slow decline, which I know obviously being good mates with Sid, and it's been going for a few years now. I've got a few Dragons fans, and it's been something where they've sort of held on to this car while it's moving on the road at a slow pace, and they're slowly getting just gravel rash though for a while. And this has been, unfortunately, for the club and the Dragons as a whole, as an entity, has that. People talk about the Broncos and that, and obviously people bag the Dragons for having that merge and stuff, but they've actually been quite a successful club. They've actually had a lot of good players in that place, and think back at their premiership winning, but there was always that joke that they were choking, but they were always getting to that second or third, fourth week of the finals, and they were always up there. Where the last couple of years, obviously McGregor was a big factor for this. They've declined, and it's become just normality for some reason for their hierarchy, where they've just gone, yeah, we're rebuilding or something, and there's always sort of an excuse, sort of similar to the Broncos, where talking to a lot of the fans and knowing Sid's passion, and he told me to do this one because I think you get too fired up and talk for too long with them. But the game plan, and Sid mentioned this to me, and you can see it happen. It's Dufty. Everything has to be Dufty. And I'm sorry, but when you got your 7, your 6, and your 9, it's their main focuses to steer the team around and to be the central point of attack, not your fullback. Your fullback's supposed to chime in. Your fullback's supposed to be the one that takes advantage of that 2-on-1 or that 3-on-2 situation or the late offload from the forward. He shouldn't be the one that has to look after all the attack. You've got Norman there to be doing that. You've got Hunt there to be doing that. Then you've now got Clooney, which he'll be better for the run this year. He's a good player. He's got a football knowledge. You can see that. But Norman is the big one for mine, and I don't think, looking back on it, they did Parramatta a favour. Where I still think Sydney has a joke to say thanks for taking him off our hands. But I think if the Dragons had that one back, they definitely wouldn't have gone there because, to be fair, he hasn't offered anything. He's done nothing. Even again on the weekend, like and it doesn't pop out in my head anything that he done well. Where if you look at some of the other playmakers like your Reynolds for the Rabbits, you just always remember every week he's kicking games on. Even Benji on the weekend for the Tigers, he kept them in that game. Yes, he had a pretty average last tackle option or third tackle option in one of the plays, but he was running around, he kept them in there. Where on the weekend, Norman didn't do anything. So I guess for the Dragons, it's another one of those years where it's sort of just been I'm glad this season's over. And I know that Sid's one of the most passionate men you'll talk about in rugby league, but you can hear in his voice and that when he talks, and you can see the Dragons fan pages and that I sort of follow and look into. Everyone's sort of just gone, let's get some fresh blood in here with the coach. Let's go again and see where we can go. But obviously, Sid, as a fan, I'll just ask you a fan question and get a quick one from you. How's it feel now that the season's over? And does it look better next year?
Okay, well, it's going to be a long off season. This nightmare's finally over. This charade, this illusion, this delusion that this coach that we had actually can coach. Forget about he's a good bloke. I get it. I've met him. He's a nice bloke. I'd be a nice bloke too if I was on 750k. I'd be nice to everyone. No problems, yeah? We forget he's a good bloke and he loves the club and he's passionate. Whatever. There's 10 million people that love their club in Australia out of the 25 population. You know what I mean? 25 million population. That doesn't do anything. It was just it was a joke. It was a disaster. They've run the club progressively into the ground. They ignored fans, they ignored sponsors, and now they've lost fans and they've lost sponsors and they've lost money. And it's no way to run a business. And on top of all that, they had to pay him out as well because they extended him for God knows what reason. But like that nightmare's over finally. We can stop yapping on about it. We just got to get through this. Try and enjoy the summer. Hopefully next year it's better, not just for our club but for the world with the stupid pandemic that's ruined everything for us. Get back to some normality, and add the Dragons, the spirit of St. George since 1921. That any team on their day that come to Cogra can get rolled. We used to play entertaining football. We used to play with heart, and players. Every single player knew when you put on that red V, it's something different. You need to bring it every single game because there's people out there that will give their right arm to pull on their red V and give their right arm to play on Cogra.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a long summer, but we finally see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Just quickly, is there any signings next year at the moment?
Don't think so. We are in the market. There's about 1.5 million.
Wow.
With Aiken gone. Well, think about it like this: Aiken gone, Frizzell gone, James Graham gone. Isaac Luke was only on small money, but he's gone as well. And there was one other. So there's about 1.5 million. They're looking for a forward to help Paul Vaughan, a front rower, edge tackle breaker. This is coming from the CEO. So he's the new CEO, Ryan Webb. I've been quite impressed with him. He's very vocal. Apparently he replies to emails and everything, from fans. And they're looking at a strike centre. Obviously, they have Lomax, so they need a left centre, and then see whatever else is out there. Like you said earlier, it is a little bit late to be shopping, but there are teams out there that need to balance their salary caps, and there'll be some opportunities. There'll be some bargains. It's not great. The market's not great at the moment, I'll be honest, but there'll be some bargains. And if you get a half decent player and you've got a good coach with a good system, then they'll play anywhere near their peak, their max potential. Then it's good. Doesn't matter what you're paying for them,
Yeah, I think you mentioned there Lomax as well. Just quickly, I think on the weekend he sort of looked to me busted, like he was exhausted mentally and physically. I think it's one of those seasons where, again, he was a bit like Dufty, where he had that real run, and one of them is that kick. It's Norman's pet play. He just kicks to him every time. It's not even on half the time, yet he does it. And the poor bloke just keeps getting smashed. And it's sort of like, yep, here's Dufty here. Oh wait, we've got Lomax as well. Let's give it to him as well. So I just noticed on the weekend, because on a side note, he's in my super coach and he sort of let me down a bit, but that's all right. But he just looked physically, mentally exhausted, which I think a lot of your players at your club has looked like that for some time now. It's not just a fresh thing. They just look like they've been caged up or something, and they're just gone, I don't know anymore. I don't know what to do. So, but that's sort of what I could just see on him. And look, I hope people did enjoy that little bit, and it's obviously going to be next week, the next 4 in the bottom 8, and a few clubs on the up for there, so that might be a bit more upbeat and uplifting, that one. But obviously for those 4 clubs, just quickly, we have talked about the market. It's going to be a lot harder, I think, next year, and we'll talk about this in future videos. But the bottom clubs that this year are going to find it hard to get up next year because of this. There's not much out there at the moment, and apparently the cap's going down as well. And there's talk, I think it's going to go from 30 players to 27 or something next year, or 28, just to get back to this through the COVID stuff and the money back. So little things going to make it harder for clubs who haven't gone too well this year to do that quick bounce back for next year. So hopefully I'm wrong in that, but I can't see it doing too much else than that, because the top clubs haven't let go of any real big players yet, and normally there's 1 or 2 that leave. So, but we want to do a quick preview on some of the key clashes this week, and one of the first times I think in a while, apart from this weekend, I got a full round, so we'll give me that one. But a lot of one easy winners for each game this week, apart from probably one game. But firstly, just a quick chat on Para Broncos on this Friday night game. And only reason I sort of want to bring this one up, because I heard a lot of people this week sort of start writing off the Eels and saying that we're not up there as a premiership contender anymore. And look, I'll be the first to say the attack hasn't been there. That's fair enough. But I thought the weekend was a weird game for people to come out and really push on that fact, where I was actually, as a Para fan, I was actually more unimpressed from the victory against the Warriors than I was against the loss against the Panthers, because the Panthers had everything. They had 60-70% possession. They had calls going left, right, and centre. They had momentum team, so they had players playing in form, which gives you that extra lift. That scoreline should have been 30 to 40 points they put on us, not 20. And that last try was with a minute to go, so last play of the game. So I actually took a lot out of that in terms of defensive and an effort performance, where I thought that if we had lost where we were at, we would have got beat by 40. So I think the boys stayed in that one and fought real hard, which I was actually impressed with. So Para fans, don't get too deflated by it. I think that it will come, and I think this weekend's the perfect game to have after that to sort of pump up and have a good game. But Sid, where do you see this one, Para Broncos?
Oh, mate, I don't want to jinx it, but I think they'll put on a score. It's a perfect opportunity for Parramatta to, grease the wheels a little bit, and let the ball sing, particularly if the weather's good, the conditions are good, if there's a hard track. I'm just waiting for that hard, fast track. I really think that Parramatta have been training heavy for a run into the finals. I really think that coaches do that. the good ones anyways, do a little mini pre-season when they're comfortable. They know they've made the 8. That's it, more than likely top 4 as well.
Yeah.
They just look tired. They're not punching the line hard. They're slow play the balls. There's just no energy. So they're doing a hit up if they have to, for example, um, but there's just no energy. And what will happen is the payoff is when you get to finals, then there's less on the fitness side and more on the tactical side. So
Yeah.
game plans and lots of video sessions, and they'll be fresh. You'll see a different team come finals,
Yeah.
but I think this week will be a turning point for them.
Yeah, exactly. I think the second game that we want to chat on is the only game this week where it's not really a one-sided affair. Manly and Titans at Brookie, and there's whispers around that Turbo's back, being named in the 21. So he needs to have a few runs in his legs before Origin, obviously. And Titans been playing so well. I'm so impressed with them. I know it's weird to say a team that's coming, 10th or 11th, you're very impressed with, but I really like the way they're playing their footy, and they're going to be so dangerous next year. But in saying that, I just feel like Manly needs to just have a win to sort of have that win for their fans. I think their fans have done it tough this year, and Brookie, they don't really let down their fans too much there, but they haven't won there much this year. So I'm tipping Manly just because of that factor. But tell you what, it would not surprise me if Titans win this. Sid, where are you at with this one?
Yeah, I like the Titans. If you cast your mind back to our season preview, I said the thing with the Titans is even when they lose, they score a lot of points. They expect you to. They ask a lot of questions of you in terms of attack. Of opposition in terms of attack, because they're gonna score 18, 20 points minimum. Sometimes they can clock 30 quite comfortably. If Manly take them lightly, then the Titans will throw the ball around and they don't care. There's no pressure on them. I don't think they've been favourites once in the last 2 years, so there's never any pressure on them. They might cause some problems. Turbo coming back does add a little doubt to my theory, but I'll stick with the Titans.
Yeah, perfect. And lastly, just the Roosters and the Sharks. I just thought this one because obviously Roosters resting Tedesco, and I think Sia Takiyaho's been rested as well, which is a big gun for him as well. And I think this is a game where the Sharks need to make a bit of a. They got a tough little run here. Sharks got the Roosters into the Raiders into the semi-finals, must-win footy. So they need to have games where you sort of want to rest your players, but you also with them they want to make a statement because they haven't beaten any top 8 sides yet. Obviously, I think the Roosters beat them probably quite comfortable by about 20, but it's a game where the Sharks need to sort of put something into people's minds that they're actually not just making up the numbers. They're here to play finals footy and have a real shot at the title. What about you, Sid? Where are you seeing this one? You seen an upset?
I'm seeing a strong start from the Sharks. They're going to play their power game with those forwards that I keep banging on about. But Roosters will do what they do best. Probably start the second half. They'll play their touch footy around the ruck, and they'll run a few set pieces. They've got about 4 or 5 set pieces that almost guarantee a try. And usually put them on the back of dummy half behind the markers, then a quick dump, then the hit up behind diagonal behind the markers. There's only one person behind the markers, and that's usually the ref, right?
Yeah.
And they just do it 3 or 4 times, and they run a set play. They've been doing it all year, and they usually just like to go up a gear. It's like they just manipulate the momentum when they want to score, and then they slow down and get back in the wrestle. And they do it again when they want to score.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking a strong start from the Sharks, but Roosters will do their thing. They'll do their thing, shake and bake, and they'll get away with it. 10-point game.
You can tell it's finals around the corner because the Roosters are flexing their muscles and they're looking one of those must-win teams that are just you don't want to verse them at the moment. So, but anyway, guys, thanks heaps for tuning in again, and hopefully you enjoy this one. It's a bit different, and we'll keep this up for the next few weeks. So if your club's coming up in the next 4, look out for it. And Sid, thank you. Hopefully we can get Big Dangerous back on for next week, and maybe 1 or 2 more guests coming into finals and get some finals ones happening as well, which would be pretty good. So a couple of good things to look forward to, guys. But enjoy the footy on the weekend. Hopefully your team gets up, and enjoy the wooden spoon battle between the Dogs and the Broncos. Let's see if there's an upset on the cards. See you guys.
Yeah.